British light heavyweight prospect Anthony Yarde makes it 12-0 with a first-round knockout victory over Richard Baranyi, capturing the WBO European light heavyweight title in the process. Now, some people have made the understandable mistake of believing that this was a European light heavyweight title fight. This fight was for the WBO European light heavyweight title, which is a relatively new title that the WBO have made up. This is not the traditional EBU European title. That is the one that's been around for decades. So when you talk about European champion, you're talking about the EBU European champion. You're not talking about the WBO European champion. Richard Baranyi was not the quote-unquote real European champion. So just to get that straight, again, it's an easy mistake for some people to make, for most people to make. So that is what that is. I said before the fight, after having looked at a few of Richard Baranyi's fights, that I didn't really expect him to put up much resistance against Anthony Yarde. Yes, he had on paper a decent record, only one loss, and he had a lot more fights than Anthony Yarde, but he'd been fighting obscure opposition and he had an extremely padded record. That's what it was. Just looking at the guy fight in the ring, he looked out of his depth against Yarde. Yarde, as I've said before, in my view, is a precocious talent. This is a man who has picked up boxing extremely quickly. His technique and his style is very polished. He's extremely athletically gifted, tremendous hand speed, tremendous punching power, great balance, timing, reflexes, the lot. This guy seems to have it all. But the level of opposition that he's been facing has been appalling. I fully understand the process of building a fighter. I fully understand that when you've got a guy like Anthony Yarde who didn't have many amateur fights and hasn't had many pro fights, you have to build his confidence. You have to put him in against weaker opposition and allow him to iron out the mistakes that he's making before you step him up. Here's the problem with what's going on with Anthony Yarde at the moment. He's not making mistakes against this level of opposition. He's not getting hit with silly shots against the likes of Richard Baranyi and most of the other guys that he's been fighting so far. He's not making mistakes. He's not getting drawn in and hit with shots and going the distance in a lot of fights against guys he should be blowing out. He's not doing that. So from when he's not doing that, you need to be stepping him up significantly. Richard Baranyi, as I say, on paper, some people might have been fooled into thinking this was a step up. But if you actually went and looked at him fight several of his fights on YouTube, you would have known that this is likely to be another knockover job for Anthony Yarde. So Yarde at this stage, because he's not making mistakes against this level of opposition and he's handling them easily, he needs to be stepped up because his skills are not going to be honed. They're not going to improve fighting this type of guy. Steel sharpens steel. So they need to put him in there against people that are a hell of a lot better than this. I've been saying this for a while, and so have many of you guys. Now, there are a few light heavyweights on the domestic scene in Britain who have been linked to Anthony Yarde. One of them is Frank Buglioni. The problem is, Buglioni is with Eddie Hearn, Anthony Yarde is with Frank Warren. Buglioni's trainer, Don Charles, has said that he's not interested in Buglioni fighting Anthony Yarde. He says to him that would be a step backwards because Buglioni is trying to move on and challenge for world honours. That's Don Charles's vision for Frank Buglioni. And going back and fighting Anthony Yarde would be a risky fight with not much reward. On the Anthony Yarde side of things, you've got Frank Warren saying he would put Yarde in with Frank Buglioni in his next fight. Let's do it. I saw Frank Warren say this in a recent IFL interview. So that fight at the moment seems unlikely because the two teams seem to be going in different directions. Would I like to see the fight? Definitely. Do I think Anthony Yarde's ready for it? I'm not sure, but he looks very polished. He's got punching power, so on and so forth. From an athletic point of view, he's far more impressive than Frank Buglioni. But Buglioni has obviously fought far better opposition than Anthony Yarde has fought. He's far more experienced. He's battle hardened. He's been there. He's seen it. He's done it. He's been on the brink of defeat and come back and snatched snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. So Buglioni's been there, seen it, and done it. He's a tough man. So would his toughness and experience be able to overcome the talent gap? Because I do believe there's a huge talent gap. I think that Anthony Yarde is much more physically talented than Frank Buglioni. So that's definitely a fight I'd really like to see. Other people have suggested a fight against the guy that Buglioni just fought, Summers. That would be another potentially decent step up for Anthony Yarde. And these are all step ups, big step ups compared to the guys Anthony Yarde has been fighting. I mean, it's not hard to step up from the guys Anthony Yarde's been facing. Where on earth Frank Warren managed to find Baranyi from? God knows. Where did he dig this? Where did he dig this guy up from? I mean, did he ever look at him on YouTube? I mean, where did he find him? Obviously, Frank Warren has matchmakers that he works with, and they managed to dig these people up. But, a guy with a padded record who was absolutely awful. It reminds me kind of Jurjai, Arnold Jurjai, the guy that David Haye fought in his second comeback fight. Even the first comeback fight when he fought Mark Damori. Damori and Jurjai were two guys with good records on paper. But in reality, they were awful fighters. Absolutely terrible. And that was the case with Richard Baranyi. A terrible fighter with a padded record. That's what he was. You've never heard of him before, and you'll probably never hear of him again after this loss to Anthony Yarde. So, yeah, again, this is not to bash Anthony Yarde. I think he's a precocious talent, but I'm baffled as to why he's not being stepped up more so, or stepped up at all, because he needs to be, as far as I'm concerned. I've listened to Tunde Ajayi, his trainer, talk about, we'll step him up when he's ready, this, that, and the other. If he's not ready now, what are they trying to keep under wraps about Anthony Yarde? Is he chinny? Does he have stamina problems? What is it with Anthony Yarde that is causing his team to hold him back like this? Questions I ask myself. Drop your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you felt about Anthony Yarde's performance, where you think he should go from here, who do you think he should fight next. Give me some suggestions, people. Drop it all in the comment section. It's happening. I'm out.